Akashic Records and Ancestral Magic with Heather Shy. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, episode 300, and we are coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. And it has been very dusty this summer, but it is finally starting to cool down. Talking about the weather a little bit. It's finally starting to feel somewhat like fall, especially in the evenings. It's nice and cool. And we have had some friends over for the past week. And okay, so let me tell this story. On one of the Randall trips, one of the Rand Wolf tour trips in the Middle Cumberland, I met this random dude named Matt, who was invited by Randall's like, I'm going to invite this guy. I was like, Matt, Randall, we don't know this guy. But Randall invited him. And it just so turned out that Matt was pretty cool. I mean, he was kind of cool. I have to admit, he was kind of cool. But the person who was really cool was his wife, Heather. So later, Kyle and I met Heather at
Sedona.
In Sedona, yeah. And Matt told me, he's like, bro, he's like, I'm sending my wife. You need to make sure that she's okay. And I'm like, okay, we'll take care of your wife there in Sedona. And we did. We met Heather. She was great, and we started having conversations. The nature of the conference in Sedona was sort of like what would you say? It was more spiritual, right? Yes. I mean, Randall was there to talk his normal stuff, but there's also a spiritual component.
Yes.
Right. And so Heather has a lot of knowledge about this stuff, and so we started talking to her. I'm like, you know what? This is really cool. So I've been wanting to get her on the show. To talk about what she does and what she knows, if we can say that, because a lot of this stuff is very intuitive. But the way she explains it is really great. So we're going to be getting into that on the show. But thank you, Heather, for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much.
It's exciting. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
We've had a great. Thank you.
Get up in that mic.
See, I need a little help with the technology.
Little help.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for giving me time to mentally, emotionally, spiritually prepare to share my ideas on a broader spectrum than I'm really accustomed to.
Yeah.
I do teach, but I do it privately. I don't do online. I do one-on-one, or I was. I'm actually in a sabbatical right now, which has been super rewarding and energizing, and allowing me to broaden my knowledge and my horizons and the tools that I use. But prior, when I was living in Sedona, I was working with clients and teaching classes, and I had never really seen myself doing anything on a large scale, because so much of what I do is individualized. And it doesn't, I won't say it's not universally applicable, because it is. It's just that when I started on this journey, it was a very personal journey, and it had to do with my own healing and my own person, and then it branched out into my family and my husband's. And so the nature of the sharing of what I had learned and been through was a very intimate type of conversation that you don't just generally share with randos in Sedona.
Right. Somehow we got past that. She's like, well, I'll tell these randos. So can you give us like some kind of broad overview? Like, how would you describe what it is that you do? And I know that it like, we've had many conversations about this. I know that it's changed, right? It's always, because you're always learning more. But can you basically, like, what is it exactly that you do? And then we can get into the details of how you learned it and, how you're continuing to learn.
Yeah, well, the broad term that I have kind of sat into is coaching. So it's a little bit of coaching, and it is teaching, But most people who come to me who then work with me will call me a healer. And some people in Sedona, because they're very, they're a little too out there into the spiritual realm, and maybe, then they call me a psychic. But I would never term myself that. I feel like
What about medium?
I have worked in that capacity before, but I never advertised it because when I have done it, it has come spontaneously as a result of the intention that we set for the particular person and their particular working.
Yeah.
And so I would never be like an on-demand medium. But when you go and work in the Akashic Records, okay, so that's the big kind of the key word that I started with, which and I started with Reiki too, which a lot more people have heard of because it's a little bit more mainstream. But the Akashic Records is a modality where you would connect to a source of information and be able to ask questions and find answers that would be helpful and beneficial to not only yourself, but someone else. If you have learned how to work within like the designation that I received when I was able to work with other people's records was a professional consultant, right? So you've done more than the base level of education. And then you've done another level of education. And then you've gotten to a third level of education where you're now able to work within other people's records with their permission, right? And this is why it's so individualized, because it has to be someone's choice. And there has to be a purpose in going into someone's records and asking a question and saying, hey, this person is here with me. They have a need to know how to overcome this challenge, or they want to know what has happened with this person from their past, a grandparent. And depending upon what the intention is and what the question is, then the information would come through.
So doesn't that sound like, this is going to happen all throughout the show because I'm fascinated with this concept. I know that, the idea of the Akashic Records is very old, but it sounds like an organized information system that has like hierarchical methods of use, and so I'm like, and so of course in my mind I'm like, well, who's running this thing? Like,
well,
how
this
is
was my thing when I first, because, I have read a lot of the same works that you have read, right? So I read Sitchin's work when I was a young woman. I was probably 21 when I read The 12th Planet. And so when I learned to work in the Akashic Records, it was as a result of having a son that was born prematurely and ended up having special needs. But, we're looking at 9 years after I initially read Sitchin's work. And prior to that, I had been in Louise Hay's work, which is a lot of belief system work and how the body can hold on to dis-ease or create disease when you have unprocessed emotions, traumas, or belief systems that substantiate illness, right? Like my body is terrible. It runs in my family that everybody has heart attacks by age 65. That's a very standard belief system that could allow the body to create something if the person then has an emotional trauma that has to do with the heart, which would be timing, something like that.
Oh.
So I've been exposed to these ideas as a young person because I myself went through a traumatic cycle, right? As a young woman, as a baby. And by the time I'm 15 and 19 and 21, I'm really looking for answers because I am really unhappy and I don't know what is wrong with me. And I want to be happy when I wake up in the morning and I want to be thankful that I'm alive, right? So I did all these kinds of searching and tools. And I believe, to answer your question, that we've been kind of tossing back and forth since we met, is why are my explanations different than many of the other ones that you have heard or found, is because my experience with it is not theory-based. My experience with it is from experiential or testing it out.
Personal. Yes.
Right? So I didn't just read a book and then spit out what the book said. I read a bunch of books. I made a process. I followed the process until I got it to work. And then once I did that, I had this idea of like what I was actually doing because the steps I did changed something.
Did you make the process, or in general at the beginning, were you following some? Didn't you say you had you've had teachers, right? So they were teaching you things, but now you've got your own sort of.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, then it morphed into my own modality, right? So, okay, I learned Reiki. This is a hands-on healing technique that a lot of people do. The educational lineage of the Reiki has been convoluted. And therefore, I don't necessarily recommend it to people now because the people who are in charge of the organization decided that they were one with the Christ consciousness and they were going to really just put that into this healing modality. So when you're working with energy and you have confusion, illusion, delusion, you're going to create chaos because you think of it as like a channel for electricity or water, right? You want a clear, straight channel for it to run smoothly. Once you start breaking it up and making all these different shapes, you create the whirlpools and the rushes and the softness, and you're not getting a clear energetic imprint. Okay, so this is what happens with some of these lineages of teaching. They pass them down through something called an attunement. So what is an attunement? You have to go and be in person with someone, technically. And they have to get into your energy field, and you go through a process that's like a ceremony where you go internally and you're in a meditation and you're seeing yourself receiving this key or this knowledge, and the person is handing you down into your crown chakra their knowledge from a lineage of knowledges. So if you put something like that into someone who is fresh and clean and has no idea of anything and it's tainted, it's not going to run properly. You've already just put the plumbing in with a whole bunch of holes or bad welding or, something like that where it's not structurally, it's not structurally sound. And so, anyway, I started with this modality and I liked it. I used it with my son when he was young. And it's just a way, and anyone can do it, where you're connecting with whatever everyone calls the divine energy of the world that makes everything live, right? And you're bringing it into your body and you're putting it into your heart and you're saying, here, I have extra. I'm going to give you some so that your body can remember how to use it, right? And the person has to be okay with it. But when I was doing all this, I'm very analytical, right? So I'm not liking the idea that I'm expected to heal someone, and if they don't fix their stuff, it comes right back, and then they say it didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So the nature of the Akashic Records to me, and so my teacher taught both. I liked her. She did an Akashic reading for me in the beginning before I started learning regarding my son and my husband, and she told me some crazy things that were completely out of my belief system. So far out, but some part of me registered them as like, oh, like that is for real. And it had to do, and we're going to get into this topic as much as you guys want or as little as we want, but it had to do with the fact that in a previous life, our roles were reversed between my husband and my child. And this was some kind of unresolved.
So Matt was the son and your son was the dad. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the father and son roles were reversed in a previous life.
Yes. And I was still the mom.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. But that this particular issue that that I was noticing, the information that came through the records was basically like, listen, this is something that originated outside of this time, and it's between the two of them, and you cannot fix it. You have to let them work it out on their own, because the more you interfere, the longer it's going to take for them to come to some kind of meeting point or agreement. And I had heard of reincarnation before, and part of me really believed in it, but I didn't research it. I didn't have a reason in my life to really dive into, the idea of it. And so I just remember sitting there and being like, oh, that makes so much sense. And also, it's not my job to fix it. I'm actually going to mess it up if I get into that. And then, of course, I wanted to learn how to read the Akashic Records because I was like, well, what else do I need to know? This seems like it's really critically important. And how many people can make better choices in their lives if they had a little extra data that's not readily available?
So would you equate this to like similar in like the Christian tradition, and people are praying to God and God can give you information? I mean, it sounds like the same. It's just different names.
See,
like
the
idea is that God knows everything. That would be
Yes.
where the records are.
And me and your wife were just talking about this because I said, a lot of these terms and ideas exist all over the world, and they have all different names. But to me, it's the same thing. And so I don't ever get hung up on terminology, because the idea that it exists is not a new idea.
Yeah,
It's
that was me getting hung up when you were first talking to us about this, and you're using these words, and I'm like, I've heard this used before, and almost every time I hear that particular phrase or this series of words together, it's basically like what I consider to be New Age gobbledygook. But when you're talking about it, it started to make sense, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's something interesting here, which is why I wanted to get you on the show. So, but and we need to keep going in this vein, like, because I have started to categorize in my mind of what you do as being like a kind of, I don't know, would you consider it maybe like ancestor magic? Is it something like that?
Well, these are my ancestral stones.
Ah.
I work a lot with the ancestors. Part of the process that you go through in learning the different levels of Akashic reading as my teacher, it's her own modality, right? She learned it from some lady, and she didn't like the way that the lady did it, because many people, and Edgar Casey included, who read Akashic Records go into trance and they have to close their eyes. Okay. So my teacher didn't like that. My teacher said, I want to look at the person. I want the person to look at me. I want to be grounded in the earth, and I want to be connected to divinity. And so she made her own kind of modality. And she's a very practical, effective type of lady. And so I liked her approach to it, because she also did not like New Age gobbledygook.
Yeah.
And I did not.
Yeah.
Like, I just think it's such nonsense, and it is a big
It's
trap.
confusing, right? It's a trap, yes. It's
and
a confusing
people get
trap.
stuck in it and can't figure out how to get out. And I think that was intentional. I mean, I know it's intentional by some of my research. I don't want to state anything definitively. But
I think that's just because the God crystal hasn't transmuted its form into their
into their
Into their
13th chakra. It's not properly aligned.
Their 18th.
The 18th chakra. Sorry, I don't know that.
No, but there was, depending on how much you go back and read about behavioral sciences and behavioral modification, and, you can call it mind control or propaganda. It's all these different terms for this process of science that people have used militarily, and then, of course, in the general public over eons of time. But specifically, I'm talking about this last, about 100-year time frame, that New Age movement got infiltrated by many of the dark people who were involved. And they put out a lot of those books on purpose, the same way they put out a lot of information where it's truth, falsity, truth, falsity, truth. And it just confused people to no end. But there was some goodness in it. It wasn't all garbage, just like a lot of things. But you had to be smart enough to have discernment to pick out the good pieces. And so many people, just like any other industry, you get so far in advancement, and to get further, you have to play the rules of the game, and either that or you don't get your support. And I don't want to say it's a huge conspiracy, because I don't necessarily feel like everything is a conspiracy, but there's enough documented research on some of these ideas that say that the people that were experimenting with these behavioral sciences wanted to see what would happen if they did these things.
Yeah.
It was a test. It was a science. It's still considered a science. And it is actually what hypnosis was, rooted in. And so we won't go into that. We can go back to the Akasha being the mind of God, right?
Well, but have you tried hypnosis? Have you practiced that at all?
Yes. So I am a fully trained clinical hypnotist. And so I worked in the Akashic Records.
You also have a degree in business or something, right?
Finance. And international business and trade, 2
Yeah.
degrees.
Have you met any longheads?
I'm looking for them, Kyle.
She knows they're out there, bro.
I know they are. So you're working in the mind of God. Your Akasha is a Sanskrit word that I believe means the ether, right? So in the old ideas, the ether is the everything, the mind of God. My experience of working in it, my teacher taught me it was a library. You're entering into a library.
That's been my picture of it as well. You put the word records on there, and of course, then I start thinking of a library.
Yeah, well, we love libraries.
Yeah.
I just want to spend all my time in the library.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I spent a lot of time in libraries when I was younger. Yeah.
But when I started working with people, clinically with their bodies, I realized, and working in my own, that you access your own records because you've got records stored in your cellular memory. And your genetic code is the other location of your own personal records. And what are these records? Some people say that they are just a recording of every single emotion, thought, action that you and all your ancestors have had from the beginning of time.
That's a lot of data.
So you think the records are both like represented in the physical and the non-physical,
I do.
and they're equal? Like, are they?
Well, no, I think the non-physical ones would be vaster, right? Because I think then you're getting into not just your blood lineage, but then you would be getting into the concept of a soul lineage.
So these are all the books I've checked out.
And your
basically.
ancestors.
Yeah,
So it's
they're like they
I
belong.
like that. That's a good analogy. Yeah.
They belong there. Like they'll go back. They'll ultimately end up.
Yeah. So, right. So, yeah, that's a great analogy. If your ancestral line ends, all of the data that is stored in your DNA is still in the Akashic Records, even if your DNA no longer continues in the.
Well, I guess
the
also
physical
the
realm.
library is still being written, right?
constantly.
Yeah.
So my teacher used to tell me when you're doing work, right? Because listen, you've got healing work and then you've got success work, right? So once you get yourself into a place where you've got your everything figured out and you're optimally functioning or as close as you can at the moment, then you start looking at success strategies. Okay, so where am I now and where do I want to go? But you can't do success strategies until you get the machine operating functionally. So a lot of people want to go from way back here to way over here, and they skip this step of like, okay, first I need to get all my pipes clean, and I need to, shine them up.
Do some repairs and maintenance. Then you do the success.
Then you have enough energy to focus it into success work, right? But so working in the records first, you work with the ancestors. You do ancestral clearing. There was a lot of stuff that came up in my ancestral clearing. And
And does that mean that, because you've said this to me before, and we never really talked about it in depth, but I have this idea that it means like your ancestor experienced trauma that was never addressed during their lifetime, and it's carried on into you through the DNA and the spiritual stuff. And so now you have to like somehow, how do you address a trauma that happened hundreds of years ago? Like how does this work? Is it probably
well, that's
different
a
every
good
time?
question, because that's going to bring us to simultaneous time, right?
Oh man, we're getting real philosophical
I
here.
would just say that that also sounds like part of the Christian faith too, or at least this idea like the sins of the father are passed on.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds
I
like to me.
think
To the
there is
seventh generation.
I think there is a lot of truth in those old works. And I believe if we had them in their entirety and that they were not edited and, that we would have a lot more information, because I think those records were written to help humanity understand these principles, right? And we've talked a lot
And
about
to heal, right? Like that's what it's all about.
And how do we live and how do we eat and be a good person? Like these are all principles that people will say are spiritual. They're all in those books.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're all in those books. And, the Catholic religion is very mystical in some ways. When you look at the ritual aspect of what they're doing and how they have designed, their certain artifices of worship. And there's a lot of principles in there that tell you that there is more to the world than just what we can sense with our primary five senses.
Yeah.
You're tapping into the mystical.
Yeah.
So, I think that it all goes together. And it's a lot of language saying things differently, but really all kind of means the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, well let's get back to like what is your method now? Like or maybe we'll go back to like how were you learning? So you had this teacher, you learned her methods.
I learned her methods. I became a teacher in her methods, and in the process of that, became a professional coach in her methods, which entailed me learning other what they call modalities, right? So somebody else's methods. One was hypnosis. One was neuro-linguistic programming, which is called NLP. And those both I had to do like a master certification in those. And
was she like she's teaching this method, but was she also I don't know if I should say using it on people, like also like using it to
she
heal
was
people?
also practicing.
Okay. And then you did this also. So you learned it, you also used it, and then you began to teach it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was certified through Louise Hay's life coach program a long time ago. And then she made her own modality, and she has a lot of different healing modalities. And what she told me when I went through my coaching, the final level of her teaching through this particular program of Akashic Records, was that I was then going to make my own modality. And I was like, well, I don't really have an interest of making my own modality. I am really liking what I'm doing with this.
Yeah.
But then what happened is when I started working with people and integrating it in, it did become my own process of how to do it. Because I'm working in my records, I'm, working in someone else's records, and I'm calling in for the highest good of everyone involved, guidance from whoever is most appropriate to give guidance for this person. Is it your soul? Is it the deceased ancestor? Is it the future version of yourself who already knows how to work through this problem? I open it up to the most benevolent, wise force that we can call in. And I say, let me know what is the most appropriate way to help this person, and show me or teach me the words that are going to ring true so this person knows how they can work through this idea. I put a lot of qualifiers in this communication, because when you're dealing with the realm that is unseen, if you are not diligent about your requirements, you will attract nefarious energies, okay? Or you can. These have and this in the Christian is called demons, but they're not all demons. Some of them are just they're mini demons. They're they're just troublemakers. They're not really trying to possess you to do some kind of crazy sacrificial
Or they're
thing.
just wrong, maybe. Right?
Some of them just don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, there's an opening on this person I can suck into, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I keep thinking of jokes, but I'm not sure. I
You
don't
could
want to be
joke.
like, this just sounds like a really complicated FOIA request. You know, you have to be very specific. If you don't say it right, they send you a bunch of information that's totally useless.
That's right. So that's what I did. So I go in and I say all the information that comes through me has to be accurate, precise, relevant, timely, uplifting, beneficial. But I learned that qualifier by not putting them in and getting some nonsense. I mean, some of it is that you have to mess up to figure out what happens when you mess up, when you're completely ignorant to what's going on over there.
It does sound like it would be termed a form of magic, right? Like you've developed a complex, detailed ritual.
Yes.
Which this segment's almost over, but in the next segment, I want you to take us through the process. Like,
okay.
How would you do it? What would it look like? What are you doing? I know you've said sometimes you cleanse yourself for days, right? I mean, like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be really clear.
Yeah.
That's my duty, is to be really clear so that my perceptions and my ideas or what's going on in my life is not impacting what's coming through for this person.
Yeah.
So that's a time commitment.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that. And this is why there's so many people everywhere that are not maybe as effective as they could be.
It can be like light coming through a dirty lens.
That's right.
It's forgetting to wipe your camera lens when you take a picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing your own trauma in someone else's
and you're
stuff
imprinting
because
it on there. Yeah.
that's right. Mm-hmm.
So forgive me for constantly making these Christian correlations, but I mean that was the tradition I was brought up in, and I'm just seeing all these correlations. I mean, to me, it's like this very organized, like method of prayer in
Yes.
a way.
Well,
Right?
prayer
And
is
then,
the intention setting. Yes.
Yeah. So
It
this
is
thing you're
all-
asking for,
Yes.
but the cleansing is like the fasting.
Yes.
Fasting. Yep.
This is cool.
Yeah.
I have to try
fasting
this.
and meditation. Yeah, we both.
Because I
wanna
was
try
doing
it.
this too.
Yeah.
I was trying to fix myself. I would fast and then like focus, at the end and try to like gain some understanding or insight. But I wasn't thinking of it as like a spiritual prayer like thing or some kind of magic or Akashic Records. It's like I had this completely different idea of what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it worked.
Well, that's the thing. And this is what got me is like, oh, it works. And so my teacher also, and Matt and I have done this together, which is a vision boarding workshop. And we've also done something called the Wealthy Mind, which is about honing in on belief systems that are disrupting your progress from point A to point B. And part of what you learn in learning all of this is that the fuel for the result that you're asking for is the emotion that you have when you're making the prayer or the intention. And so the way to really move that energy is to really feel it and want it. And then in the second part of that process, you would imagine that you have it already and you would feel that emotion, all of that gratitude, all of that clarity, all of that excitement of like, wow, I have reached a new height in my own personal development and it now can ripple out, right? You would feel all that and give gratitude to everything and everyone and God and the whole shebang for that. And then you've kind of set it in motion and hit the send button. And now you let God and the universe and the field of existence, whatever you want to call it, the ethers, you let it work. And you're here ready to take your action steps when it's time because you've set the course out.
Yeah. That's a lot. See, that's a way more detailed explanation of how to do a prayer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, let's take a break.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Brothers of the Serpent podcast, joined by Heather, and talking about this interesting Akashic Records prayer stuff that I'm definitely going to have to try.
Yeah, we both want to try it.
So yeah, you were going to describe the process, like what you actually do to like.
And then if you can, like I know you can't give us all the details, but you've had successes. You probably could talk about the ones with your son. Like he had physical problems too, right? That you guys dealt with this. But yeah, I want to hear the process and then how it's worked for various different problems.
Great. And just a side note before we go into that, in the Bible, there is a term that's called the Book of Life.
Yes.
And I believe that is the reference to the Akashic Records in the Bible. Okay, so we can offshoot that if we want to later.
So the Bible has the Book of Life. The Egyptians had the Book of Death.
Same thing.
It's the same book.
Thing.
Same.
Just split. So the process, so in Arizona, I had my own office and people would contact me. And I don't want to say I did an intake, but I had a question kind of session with them before, because a lot of my work and what we just talked about is this prayer process, that the intention and the prayer opens up the gate to the path. So I would always want someone to come to me with a specific prayer or intention or something they really needed to figure out before they came to me.
So no broad brush, like fix me. Like I got problems.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah.
If I had someone that came to me and said, I don't know what's wrong, but I have a problem, I would help them describe to me what they're experiencing specifically that's creating an issue.
Yeah.
And
So
we
then
would
you narrow it
drill down a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, there are some types of hypnosis, like a training I took called the Simpson Protocol, which you don't really have to know anything except that your intention is that you're going to put everything that's out of balance into balance or something like that. Now, I didn't explore that hypnosis as much as the one that I do, because the one that I do, I had the most results from and I was comfortable in it. When people were coming to me and I was making sure my guidance system was in alignment with what they needed done, my process was the one that came out as the process to use. But there are people that have had success with the Simpson Protocol where you're basically saying this person has a problem, super conscious, oversoul, fix it. And they go through this series of 100 questions and they use a finger response and they allow the person's own soul or super conscious or inner physician to fix things. Okay.
What's a finger response?
Well, you would be in hypnosis. So you're in a trance, right? And we can talk about hypnosis a little bit here because it will be important to describing my process.
Okay.
But hypnosis is just a term for going into a trance. And the trance is just a term for lowering your brainwave state, right?
Yeah.
So we're probably in a beta. It's a fast brainwave state right now. We could be a little bit in alpha. It's a little bit slower. Theta is when you're in a meditation. Delta is when you're sleeping, 0 to 4 cycles per second or something. So when you're in a good hypnosis, you're in between delta and theta. And your conscious mind is occupied on something that you've given it to do. Some people who are very analytical like to count. Some people who are good dreamers like to imagine they're on a beach. So the conscious mind is busy, and then you have access to the subconscious mind where you are either accessing the Akashic Records through them. I don't know, but you can ask questions, you can get information, you can input programming in. And so
Sounds a little, I mean, like the idea of inputting programming, this sounds
that's right.
scary,
It is.
like tampering with somebody's brain. But I've heard also that like
Yeah, that's how
if
they
you
get
don't like it, if the subject doesn't like the input, then they'll kind of like come out of it
Reject
like,
it.
No, reject
Yeah,
it.
it has to be. At least what I've read is you have to reinforce it through recurring hypnotic sessions in order to make it work. If
Yeah.
it's something that they're kind of trying to reject,
Yeah.
and
But-
even then you can't really completely force it. But this is how people will quit smoking. Like
Yeah,
this-
I know, but
yeah.
also if you had a really clever hypnotist, they could sneak like bad stuff in without the
See,
client.
I
being
agree with that.
aware.
When I learned hypnosis, they said you cannot do that. But from what I have learned about behavioral sciencing and programming, I am saying theoretically, yes.
This is what I think a lot of like videos and things that are being put out are
Correct.
in ways like hypnotic.
Yes.
And they're inputting, people don't even realize
No.
like the deeper meaning or ideas that are being put into their
Right.
heads.
So the conscious mind is distracted by the visual
Yeah.
and the audio, and then it drops you. As soon as the eyes stop moving, you have gone into a trance. You can do it naturally when you're watching a fire or listening to music or playing music, but watching a screen and keeping your eyes straight is automatically going to drop that brainwave state. And that is how a lot of these ideas are being input into the young population.
Keep your eyes moving, people.
Right. Yeah, I'll keep-
Well, and this is part of
not
some.
hypnosis.
Yeah, I mean, the eye movements are really important, and it's how you access areas of your brain.
I remember that when we were reading about like self-hypnosis, there was like little things you could do. For one, you roll your eyes up
Yeah.
and it helps you get into like, and you hold them there, it helps you get into the alpha state. I can't remember this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially like you roll them up, you count, and this is like when you were saying people count or people visualize. It's both of those things, and we did a bunch of it. But you roll your eyes up, you do a count, like you establish the count in your mind, you do it very slowly, you visualize the numbers, and then right when you reach, and it's always a count down when you're trying to hypnotize yourself. And when you reach 0, you relax your eyes, and like you could feel it dropping you, like it's a strange physical sensation.
Yeah, I love it. I love doing hypnosis and I love being hypnotized. My teacher, I trust her. I love her. And this brings us to my process.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is what makes it different and why I think it's really important to not just go into any hypnotist and say, help me lose weight or help me stop smoking. Because so someone's going to come to me. They have an issue. We're going to drill down. Okay, I'm going to get their permission to go into their records, and I'm going to make an intention with them that their benevolent guidance and my guidance are going to collaborate in the ethers and assist us in our dream state to bringing out the very ideal verbiage and process that's specific to this person for their highest and best good. So that's an intention. That's a prayer. It's also a tool. And so a tool. And so this starts it off. It makes the path different than just going into someone's office and saying, help me out. No, because now we're aligning.
cigarettes.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
They're going to make you throw up if you smell them. Right? So this we're already aligning for your highest and best good. And that's an easy phrase. Everyone can always use that. Is this for my highest and best good? Mm-hmm. This is how we get guidance. And it's being specific. A lot of working in the Akashic Records is asking the right questions and knowing how to ask them. You know, do I want to move to Toledo? Well, that's not a good question. Is it going to support my life goals and happiness and quality of life to move to Toledo? That's a totally different question.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when we're setting these intentions, we're saying the work that we do together is going to be in alignment with you and your soul and God's purpose for your life and all the things that are coming together, so that we're not fighting against something when we're putting in programming. On the other side of that, when I go in, if there's a lot of bad, weird, destructive programming, we will do our best to take it out and update it and put it back in properly. And that a lot of that will go ancestral, okay? Because a lot of the belief systems and things that we tell ourselves, or those are coming from older versions, either of ourselves or of our grandparents, all the way back through the line. And so
like you're saying that that even belief systems are being carried through these records and can imprint themselves on a person even if they haven't specifically been taught them. Like,
yes.
Oh, wow.
Flat earthers.
That explains
from
the flat earth.
It comes from a long time ago.
They've come back.
Their ancestors.
Yeah. And they've said, listen. Seriously,
I'm sorry.
though, it's true, because people have all of these unconscious behaviors and ideas that they play out without thinking about it. We call it going potato, because in the idea of the garden of the mind, the conscious mind is the pea. It's a little small part, but it thinks it's the boss. Okay, that's your beta brainwave state. Then alpha is the carrot that goes back to the back garden, which is the onion and the potato. The onion is the layers of like the records, I would say, or maybe in the onion, trauma and stuff can be held in the onion. It's where you're not unconscious. Like the potato is your unconscious. It's the biggest part. It's where all your intuition
No,
and
it's
psychic
the buried mass of that's
stuff.
what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
Under the ground. And
Yeah.
the onion too, but
Yeah.
it's not so far down.
Yeah.
It's closer to the surface. You're working in that in your dream state and in meditation and stuff. You're getting into the onion there. Okay. So people do all these things from this big unconscious part of themselves. They don't know where it comes from. Like me, I used to get stressed out. I really want cookies and milk. Where does that come from? My grandma loved cookies and milk. My dad never ate sweets. Oh, I'm sorry. My dad never ate sweets. He didn't raise me in a house with cookies and candy that much, or cake. And I was like, one day I'm like, well, why do I think that cookies and milk is going to fix this when I want to wring my kid's neck? And the funnier part is, though, then when I did it, I would get like the, oh, calm again.
Yeah.
So that's a programmed response.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Maybe you work for Santa Claus.
That's
right.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, that's how
We're
you
like
calm
this,
Santa down.
me and Santa. We go way back. So, you have all these things that are there that when they come out, from my perspective, they want to be updated, released, healed, integrated, whatever your chosen verbiage is. They're popping out and saying, hey, this is time. You're ready to deal with this. I'm coming out to show you that it's time to deal with me. And these are the things that we're working on in a session, right? Someone's got an issue that's come up. We don't want to get into the astrology behind it, but we could.
No, we're definitely should talk about the astrology as
Okay.
well.
I
mean,
just can't-
You're like also, I know you don't say you're an expert, but you make huge detailed charts, right? I would call you an expert. I know you don't think you are, but that's just the mark of an expert to me. You're like,
That's
well,
my
I still
favorite
have so much to
pastime.
learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I know somebody told me recently, he's like, you people with all that Virgo in your charts, you're always constantly trying to learn more, but you already know more than 85% of the people doing it.
Yeah.
He's like, get out there and help people. And I was like, okay. Yeah. He's like, because I called somebody for a reading. It's a new type of astrology reading that ties in what I work in the Akashic Records, right? You're dealing with the soul. You're dealing with the soul purpose. there is a set of glyphs on the astrological chart, which we can drill down to that in a minute if you want to, that has to do with the soul path and the soul purpose. Okay. So I'm learning this new modality that gives a whole story on the soul path and the soul purpose and shows you in the chart, someone's personal birth chart, where the wound was and then how they can move through this wound into their highest existence, right? It's all right in the chart. So of course to me, I'm like, this is fun because now it's not just coming through my head and going to someone else's head. I can show people a picture and I'm going to trigger their own remembrance and knowledge and their Akashic records in their body of times when they have studied these things or known that astrology and astronomy were real sciences. You know, we've not moved into that stage again in this time frame, but certainly throughout history and especially in the Egyptian times, astrology was just important as important as the priesthood.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was right up there and like things that you want to study in the arcane magics and the arcane knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a lot of it is timing. And so someone's come to me, their time has come up, they need to heal something, we set the intention, and then they would come to me because we've already decided that when we have our time together, we've already figured out the solution, and we're just going to show up and be really clear and do it together. And so how that works with each person, there is kind of a set process, but I'm checking with their records to make sure if they want me to add anything or change anything specific for this person so that I'm getting the full effect for them specifically.
And what is that? How does that, like you've said this before, like you're looking into their, you're checking their records or you're asking, like, what is that like for you? Is it visual? Are you in a trance? Like
That's what I was going to ask about the hypnosis. Are you self-hypnotizing while you're hypnotizing them as well?
I think you do self-hypnotize a little bit because it's your body and your knowingness of that state that's actually helping that other person's body who hasn't gone in and out of trance as much to know how to do it and how to stabilize and be really comfortable. So you do get relaxed when you do it. Now, when I'm going into someone's records, it can be as different as each person. So I have their permission. I'm in my records. I've made sure all my stuff is clear.
what is that like? Like going into your records? Like how do you do this?
I'm saying a prayer. It's an incantation.
Okay.
With some eye movements, with an intention. You always go in with an intention or else... Like
so
my records,
are you getting feelings? Is it like thoughts coming into your head? Like how?
So I am a person that is visual, audio, and kinetic. I don't know, but I feel, I hear, and I see.
Okay.
So I get the whole shebang.
So you're starting this process with somebody. You've gone into your records. So it's somewhat visual. Is that what you?
Yeah.
Like, are you doing
I'm
kind of a mind
visualizing when I
palace
go
thing?
in.
Or is it, yeah.
I'm visualizing when I go in, and I'm giving thanks. I've set my intention. I've asked for my senses, my hearing, my sight, my voice, my smell.
Is it like a room, or is it
my-
halls?
Yeah,
books
it's a, well,
and
you know,
stuff?
a giant, yes. It would be rows and like a library.
Okay, so you're visual in
Yeah.
your records.
That's what I'm
is
saying. Like,
Actually,
what is
a
it like?
library.
Yeah, it's like a
a
library.
beautiful golden doors, yeah. But I've had the thought before that the record keepers are Anunnakis. I'm like, well,
told me that
This
before.
is
Yeah.
the Sitchin stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
who am I talking to? So I started asking them at some point, and then I gave up because sometimes I don't want to say they're rude, but like they're basically on a need to know basis.
They're like, shh.
They're not there, to feed your whole
It's like you said you came here for this, and now you're asking me other questions.
That's right. And because especially if you're in someone else's records, like, and people get scared about this. Like, well, I have a friend that really wanted help, but he's like, I don't want you going to my records because I don't know what you're going to find in there. And I was like, listen, you're asking me to help you with something. Your record keepers are not going to give me full access to your whole library.
You're like, oh,
they're
you're
going to
asking for this,
give
but
me.
have you seen this book?
Yeah,
Did you know that your husband was a hacker?
Yeah. Well, and even him too. When I first started, he's like, I don't know what you're going to see in there. And I'm like, dear, on the spiritual principle that I would never ask to see anything that I was not given permission to see. The record keepers do not let you just go in and rummage through someone's
Specifically
stuff.
that FOIA request. That's it. That's all you get.
That's all you're getting.
They're very bureaucratic, which is why they remind me of the Anunnaki.
I remember you telling me this. You were like, I'm worried sometimes that I don't want any Anunnaki bullshit,
Right.
in my stuff. Like,
So, so I get the whole, I'm getting visuals. If I've got someone coming in, I feel them like a lot. I can feel the emotionality going to the person, then the person feels it. It's a really cool sensation, but it's why you have to be really careful about allowing yourself to run energy through and enter people's energy, because if you're not clear, and if you're not smart, and if you are overly empathetic, you can let stuff in that doesn't want to leave. Or, yes.
Hitchhikers.
That's right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know how to do like all that stuff you're saying. I mean, it's like, let me just feel your energies.
It's weird because the process of attunement, what I was talking about in the very beginning, is where my teacher handed me her lineage of how to do it, right? And then when you're training,
hold on. I'm sorry, but you've said that twice now, attunement, and they're handing you a lineage. So this is a sort of ritualized method of transference of ability? Is
Correct.
that yeah. Wow.
But but the ability it's like a mental ability or a spiritual ability.
Well, you'd have to have some aptitude for it. Probably even to be interested in it, I would think.
Is it mostly women that can do this in general?
Now, most of the people that I know are women, but I'll tell you, in astrology, you will find an overly feminine base of practitioners. In hypnosis, though, I do find a lot of men.
There's a lot of men in hypnosis, I agree.
But I think that, like I said, I wouldn't send someone I love to some of them. I know a couple that I really like.
Hypnosis seems to be also like a little bit more things and stuff.
Well,
like
and NLP is like that too.
It's a little more like tangible. It's this idea of brain waves, and this is something you can measure. It's physical. It's whereas like some of this other stuff is a little more feely.
Yes.
So it kind of makes sense to me.
Right, so guys are like, I can put instruments on this.
Yes.
I can put things on his head and see the brain waves changing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the Akashic Records, I knew men that were in my classes.
Yeah, I'm sure
they
there
were
are.
older
but it's
men.
probably a preponderance.
I've seen
of
those
women.
guys. I definitely have seen them. You can spot them.
Yes, you can. Like, that guy
The long
is a
white
Reiki
beard.
healer.
Yeah.
Very colorful coat.
Oh my gosh. No, it's so fun.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
I'm just.
And young guys.
They probably have crystals somewhere.
I had a young, totally a meathead that came in and went through 2 or 3 levels of Akasha with me.
I'm not saying you don't have to wear patchouli oil to do this,
funny.
but it does happen.
And I was like, what are you doing taking this class? He's like, I really like our teacher. She's helped me a lot. And she told me that, I can do a lot of this myself, which is a good teacher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a guy who did Reiki, and he was like that too. It was actually it was interesting because when I was in physical therapy after the car accident, our physical therapist that was here in town, she was great. Fantastic. And her son, who was like tall, well built, like looked like a bodybuilder guy, but he's like, yeah, man, I do Reiki.
Yeah. That's right.
Right? And I'm like,
they have
what,
a lot
bro?
of chi.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got that high chi level. I used to try to get Matt to do it because he's like, I don't even need to learn it. I already have it. And I was like, You're right. Okay. Why don't we focus that on some goodness over here, right?
But I'm just saying because it's funny because I'm asking you about like on average or the preponderance of people is probably women doing this healing stuff specifically, but I agree with you. There's going to be outliers, and I think this guy was one of them because he's
Yeah.
like you would never look at him and think that's a crystal hippie Reiki dude,
Yeah.
right? He's like he doesn't.
I had
He
one
looked
too.
like a young professional bodybuilder,
That's
like
right. In Flagstaff, where he was working for an adventure company that took all these professional teams down the Colorado River
Oh,
on like
yeah.
5-week trips.
Wow.
And he was such an amazing, like him and his wife did it for like 20 years. And he did a modality called Rolfing, which is named after the person that created it, ROLF, Rolfing. And it is some people call it massage, but they call it a structural integration. And what I learned recently about what they do, because they also do something called cranial sacral work, which a lot of people do, where they're helping the flow of the cranial sacral fluid, run freely. And
is that like
I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't-
oh, you haven't heard of that?
no.
Yeah.
No. So it's a modality. It's in the same range of like a manual medicine. So, okay, Rolfing is structural integration, where in their healing work, they have something called a 10 set, where you do 10 sessions with them, and they start with your feet and they work their way up. And they're working with the fascia, the myofascial release. They're working with the psoas, which is this inner muscle that people who have a lot of back pain and trauma gets held in the psoas. They release that. And oh my gosh. So I was also in a terrible car accident at age
right.
19.
Yeah.
I was flown 23 feet or something out of the windshield of a vehicle. I landed on my arm and my face. And luckily my eye, it was cut, but I didn't lose my eye because my eyelid was like cut in half, basically. But I shattered my humerus. So, and I was an athletic young person. And so I did heal relatively better than anyone kind of thought I would. But, okay, so I'm not 19. I'm well beyond 19. So for about 20 years, even doing chiropractic and massage and working out and all these other tools that we've talked about, I still had back pain when I moved to Arizona in 2017. And I did this 10 set with this Rolfer, and he he helped me fix my posture or how I walked because my gait was off from my vertigo and all that. And I have not had the pain come back.
Wow.
So that was in
I need to try that.
2017.
Sold.
Yeah.
But you have to find a good one that's a secret crystal hippie that actually knows what they're doing, because when they're working with the body, how he described it to me, and he's working under the Rolf. There's a whole Rolfing website, so you can see what the Rolfers do. They're working with the trauma that the body holds. And so what he's doing is getting his body to be in really good shape and having it be optimally functioning. And then he's tuning into your psoas or your hamstring and saying, listen, this is actually the way you're supposed to be over here. Look at mine. And they're doing some kind of weird energy transference between the bodies.
Yours is learning from
a
theirs.
file
Yeah.
share.
Whoa.
So you have to have someone smart.
Yeah.
And you have to have someone, like, I prefer people who spend a lot of time in nature, because I feel like just in general they know stuff that they maybe don't know that they know. They're in the rhythm of harmony if you're spending more time in nature. Okay. And so then cranial sacral is another guy who learned like this Rolfing practice. They start their own practice and they start working with people with injuries. And they found that if they could sense the cranial sacral fluid moving, they could balance it out. And that some people that have breathing problems or sleeping problems, it has to do with this fluid having a...
Is this
Wow.
a real, like a physical fluid? That's
I believe so.
Like an actual...
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah,
actually.
I'm just curious
You guys
if
will
this
have
is
to
like an
fact check
ethereal
me.
fluid like the chakras in a way?
From what
or
I
is-
understand, it's an actual physical fluid
What?
that runs in the spinal column up down to the
cerebrospinal fluid. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
well,
what
yeah.
they're working on.
I'll look it up. What's
Yeah.
it called?
Cerebral spinal
Yeah,
fluid
cerebral.
Oh,
or
well, that-
cranial sacral is working on the cerebral spinal fluid. From my understanding of it, I'm not a trained practitioner.
Yeah, I
yeah.
know. I was just curious if this is, yeah.
Okay, so back to your process. You get into your part of the Akashic Records, and then you're in tune with the person that you're working with.
So
and
then I
you're-
go into their records.
Yeah, then you got permission, and you go into their records, and you're
And sometimes it's very intense because you will feel what that person feels.
yeah,
So it could be a really super intense person. But that's how I know I'm in the records a lot of the time because it's totally different from my own.
right.
And then I ask though, just to be
You're
sure.
like, how did I get to this part of the library?
I'm like, am I in the right spot in the library? And
Yeah.
they'll be like, yes. What do I need to do to make sure that this is accurate, precise, relevant, timely?
Yeah,
I go through the whole process again. I clear. I make sure that any energies that are not for the highest and best good of all involved are banished.
Do you get the person you're working with to also fast or clear themselves at all? Do they have to do any of that before you do this?
They should, but when I was working with people in Sedona, I didn't have a lot of people traveled to
Yeah.
see me and such, and so I would actually go through a clearing process, and I would always ask, like, okay, what's the first step? And the records will be like, okay, well, you need to do the whole thing, which is
Okay, yeah. So the records
the
tell you
whole
like this
clearing.
person needs to be cleansed
the
first.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we go through that process where we drop this is etheric, this is all energy and imagination work, but where you drop a golden rope from the bottom of your feet into the center of the earth, and it's called a grounding cord. And it's important for working in the ethers because then you're grounded to earth in reality and you're not floating off into the fifth dimension with your 17th chakra and your crystals. No, you're on earth.
Okay.
You are breathing air.
Yeah.
You cannot live on air and you cannot live on sunlight. You need food and water and air
Yeah.
and all the things. We can fast, but
Yeah.
you have to have balance
Yeah.
and practicality, right? Okay, so you're in there. So this is the step that my teacher added to her modality that none of the other ones had, that enabled you to then be in the records, but then have your eyes open and be present and not in trance because you're here on earth and you're connected to the library. But I didn't send my etheric body into the library and then I'm still talking through my mouth.
Yeah.
I basically have an internet connection
Uh-huh.
instead of going with your
Okay, so it could be remote data transfer, basically. Sort of.
right.
Yeah.
So part of me is there and is connected, but I'm still present
Yeah.
in the earth. And so then we go through the clearing process. And before I can get into anything else, this was what we were talking about earlier, we have to get everything kind of situated, right? I need to clean the chakras. And a lot of people don't believe in chakras, but it's an Eastern medicine practice. And so a lot of acupuncturists and people that practice Chinese medicine and Hindu, which is yoga and things like that, they rely on this chakra system, which is, not a physical part of the body, but related to physical parts of the body. And it's a way we bring energy into the body. But first we want to be grounded into the earth. And then we bring the energy into the body from the earth. And it helps you feel safe and grounded and practical. And then you clear the chakras. And we don't have to get into all that because it's a pretty standard process. But what I add into that is a little bit different is that as we're going through the clearing process, if something comes up that needs to be identified, we ask, can we put this on the file to be taken care of after the clearing? Because we don't want to get into a healing process before we have cleared the body and put the person in as much balance as we possibly can. You can think about it as cleaning a house, but then you find a broken pipe, and instead of finishing the house, you go and work on the pipe, and then the whole house stays dirty.
I think a really good analogy is winemaking.
Oh,
Like when you get the fruit, if there's a problem, you don't want to start the fermentation process. You want to get the fruit balanced, the juice. You want to get rid of any, like if there's rot or something going on in there, you have to clean it. You got to get it as
or
balanced
else
as you
it
possibly
spreads,
can.
right?
If you don't,
Or just
and you
carries on
start
into
the fermentation process, things will go awry in ways that you can't predict, that you can't fix later.
Yeah.
So yeah, or that when you fix them later, they leave
traces.
It's noticeable,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even though it was fixed. It's not
It's different.
a high quality wine like it would be if you had gotten it set straight right at the
In
outset.
the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I go through
kinda
this
cool.
process with people, and I put some intentions in there as we're working through it to make sure everything's balanced, open, active.
Do you find like when you said you're like clearing the chakras, can you find a blockage and be like, this is part of the issue that we need to address?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you complete the cleansing process if there's a blockage and that's part of the problem to fix? I mean, we're supposed to take a break here, but
Oh, okay. So do you want to pick that up when we come back?
yeah, we can
then?
get that when we come back. Yeah.
Okay.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers of the Serpent Podcast. Second half of the show already, fastest 2 hours in podcasting. I am cracking open my first beer. And we're still working on the process, and I had a question right before the break about, so when you're cleansing the chakras, and maybe you can just, like, I know that you were saying, like, I don't need to describe this, it's well known. You're right, but not to us.
Okay.
I don't even know what all the chakras are.
Oh.
So,
good.
like, you could probably just, like, here's what they are and how many there are and what each one is generally for. But the question was, when you're trying to cleanse that person, if you come across a blockage in the chakra, like, how do you proceed if that has to be fixed before you can even start working on what they wanted to work on?
Great. So I'm going to go back to the beginning a little bit of when I'm entering into the records, right? Because we talked about a little bit about what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling. And this is important when I'm looking at the blockages.
Okay.
Because I've gone into my library. It's huge golden doors. It's a huge building. And I am a tiny person. And the people standing at the door, the record keepers is what I call them, they're giant. They're giant beings. It's a giant library. It goes on and on endlessly. And it's marble and golden and gilded and beautiful.
Okay.
And it's massive. Okay. So I've gone in, I've gotten my clearance, and then I'm going into someone else's section, and I'm in their row.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have their section in your library.
Or this library
It
that
is
I've
the
entered.
library.
The
Okay,
library,
okay.
yeah.
Gotcha.
She's gotten permission to go from her
Gotcha.
area into somebody else's
I get
area.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm in their row. And if I needed to, I could pull out a book about them and look at it. Okay. If I had a question
Yeah.
and I would be guided, to put my hand in a specific place, I would actually pull out a tome or a book. It would open to the page that I needed to look at, and it
Wow.
would show me something that I was asking for information about.
Is it words or is it visual sometimes?
It could be
pictures, or-
either. I mean, sometimes I do read stuff. A lot of my intuition is visual. And you guys know this because you work with geometry, that so much data can be held in a glyph or a picture that
Yeah.
would take 10 pages to write out.
Do they have an audiobook section?
We need one.
Just sorry. Sorry. Keep going.
Yes. Okay. So then so we've done the golden rope. It's a beautiful, thick golden rope. I mean, we're talking 12 inches across, and I
okay.
have everyone picture their own rope that they would creatively make. Whether
Like a
they
maritime rope, like a proper,
Huge.
massive. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And then you anchor it into the middle of the earth with another giant, a stone or a gem or something that makes the person feel like, yes, this is my anchor.
Okay.
It could be a big sailor's anchor, but most people are connected into, like I like a Herkimer diamond. It's a specific stone that is used for working in the ethers. So mine, it's 5 feet wide. It's a giant stone. I've visually connected my rope into this anchor and I've said, hello, Mother Earth, I'm right here. Thank you for allowing us to live on your surface and for all the things that you give us.
Can I use like a giant T-Rex fossil skull?
You can.
Okay.
Whatever
great.
you like. I was trying to think about what those little spirally fossils
ammonite?
are. Yeah, an
Yeah.
ammonite. Matt would have an ammonite.
Matt would have a 6-foot ammonite.
But yeah, anything that, people use this word resonates with you. What does that mean? It brings harmony to you. You feel in resonance with it. It's a kind of a key word in the New Age movement, and people don't, they throw it around like nothing. But it gives you a physical response that you feel like, yes, this is my rock.
Okay.
This is my
Yeah.
stone.
Okay. Yeah.
This is my house, right? So that's what I mean when I say that word. Okay, so then you're moving. So then you've got this beautiful rope. You're connected in. Your first chakra, your red chakra, is at the base of your spine. And it's, I'm safe. I'm here and I'm safe. I have what I need to live. Okay, so we make sure that that's clean, clear, bright, active, open. And if it's not, you're going to see a dark thing or a crack or, a
And you're
piece
seeing
broken
this
off.
in your mind's eye or in
Yes.
the library?
Oh,
or
in my mind's eye.
Okay.
Because now I've moved. And part of me's in the library, part of me's with the person working through their system. Now, if I had a question about what the thing was, I would kind of reference the part of me that's in the library and say, show me. What do we need to do about this? And that's when I could go pull the book off the shelf and look at it. Or I might hear something that says, this is connected to what you're working on today. Get it as clear as you can and move on up. Because then you're visually seeing a golden light come up through the rope and cleanse this red chakra. And there's
are you talking? Are you explaining this stuff to this person while it's happening, or are you just sitting there quietly?
usually I'm talking.
Okay.
Because I've done some type of guided meditation, which brings you into a light state of hypnosis. And I'm asking them to visualize with their eyes closed.
Okay, so you can speak about the visualizations, and you both actually have this image in your mind. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
That's cool.
that's an attunement, right? Yeah. Cool.
So then we're going to move it up to the orange chakra, which is called the sacral chakra. It's your seat of creativity. It's where your reproductive organs are. And, I like to say I have access to the most creative part of my beingness at all times, and depending on who the person is and what they're looking for, I might standardize that. But then you're seeing it being bright and shiny and clear. And for women like to put flowers there, a big red flower, a big orange flower. Then you're going to move it up into your solar plexus, which is the what you call your gut feeling, your stomach, your intestines. That's yellow. That's your personal power. So I am empowered to live my best life. You're going to move it up into your green chakra, which is your heart chakra. And that is, I can give and receive love, right? So usually once we're there, I've encountered some blockages.
Yeah.
From the people. And then you get to the green one, and some can be totally closed. Okay.
Can't receive love or give it. Yeah.
So then you have to figure out how to open that with that person. And first, I will ask them to thank their body for everything that it does, every process it's ever done their whole life since they've been born. Sometimes that works.
Wow.
And then I ask them to send out love to everyone that has ever loved them or taken care of them or done anything nice to them. Then I ask them to receive all the love from all the people that they've helped in their life. And then you're going to get tears
Yeah.
of people don't receive it because they don't feel worthy a lot. And a lot of people who like to give, overly give, but then won't receive. And it creates a huge imbalance. So we work through those. The bottom chakras are really the ones you're going to be, you want to keep clean and bright and shiny. It's something that you could do every day is drop your golden rope with your big rock and you light up all your chakras. There are 7 total. Those are the first 4. They call those kind of the earthly chakras because they have to do with surviving on earth. And then the heart is kind of the midpoint. And then you get up here into the throat, which is a blue chakra. And I like to say something like, I speak my authentic truth for the highest good of all involved. And you want to see that one bright and shiny. A lot of people who have past life trauma with speaking will have some kind of visual damage to that chakra, which is etheric. But it would translate into people having something like stage fright or losing their voice, or, there's all kinds of physical ailments that you could connect to this injury, to this chakra system.
Wow.
And that's how the Eastern medicinal practices work, is the meridians and the chakras, which are basically energy channels that run from the chakras, which are in the center of the body. Then you've got the third eye, which is the indigo chakra in between the 2 eyes right here. The people in the Hindu religion a lot of times cover that with a red dot because they feel like you can take on demonic possession if you leave it open. Okay, people who do sensory deprivation, they're kind of closing that off. Because that's where and I believe, this is where we have access to our spiritual guidance, where we would go to our own Akashic Records if we were doing a guided meditation. We were visualizing ourselves walking up into our own little golden door, So that's the 6th chakra. And then you have the 7th at the top of the head, which is called the crown chakra, which a lot of people like to say is a violet lotus. And then that is what I connect us directly to God.
The divine.
The divine.
Yeah.
And there are chakras in between there because
Is this what the little caps in the Jewish tradition are about?
Protection, yes. And so then I have another chakra that's right here that's called your soul star chakra that I like to think is silver. But it actually projects your auric field. So now the auric field is something that people take pictures of with a camera. And there's lots of practitioners that do it. I have not researched the technology.
There's a coffee shop in Sedona that claims to do that.
It's probably a lot of... My teacher had one, okay?
That was the first. Kyle and I were driving into Sedona, and we see coffee crystals, aura photos, and we're like, yes. That's how we know we're in Sedona.
Yeah. No, there is so much fun stuff out there. So
I had the most interesting mushroom and seaweed coffee.
Yeah, that's right.
It only cost me $36.
Exactly.
And it was disgusting. But so, the auric field, Edgar Casey talked a lot about auras and that he could see them in people, and that depending on what color their aura is, he could tell where their trauma was. And so there are people in modern times that say that they can see auras. What I like to say is that it's a protective bubble around you, and you want to clean it because it kind of is like Velcro, and people's stuff will stick to it. And I teach the kids, and I have since they were little, you drop your golden rope, light up your chakras, clean your bubble. And I like to make it shiny and golden. And I like to say, no nefarious stuff can get through my bubble. It's like my own little spacesuit. But you don't want it giant. You want it close to your body. And you visualize it and you energize this field, because there are some people, and this has an astrological basis to it, who are natural sponges and pick up everyone's emotions and their thoughts, and they cannot tell what is yours and what is yours and
so
what is theirs.
they have soft boundaries, is what you're saying.
Yeah, just totally open.
Yeah.
And so I teach them, like, okay, ground in, protect your bubble. And when you get something, you know, you ask yourself, is this mine or someone else's? And so I like to say, just like, you know, working with a garden, the more you tend it, the better it is. And so you go through this process with someone and you do it, and then I feel better. The kids feel good when they do it. I just made it like a energetic hygiene, like a daily, like you would clean the toilet, you know, clean your stuff.
I can't wait to tell Troy to go brush his bubble. Go brush your bubble.
Yeah. Go clean your chakras, bro.
They'll be like, fine, Mom. Andrew used to get so mad at me. He'd be like, I just did it, Mom.
I was going to say with kids, you know.
Yeah.
Why are you always asking me to clean it? And I'm like, well, it's really important, you know, that you feel good in your body and that it's, you know, just you in there, nobody else's stuff.
It's the same thing as like with brushing your teeth. Like, I just brushed them yesterday. Yeah, you got to do it again. Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so you go through this process with people. If you detect blockages or breakages or any damage, you try to work on them right then and there because you're trying to cleanse this whole. And this is prior to actually addressing the issue with which the person came to you in the first place.
Yeah,
but clearly, to me, it seems like sometimes you may, like, you get to the heart chakra and you find it's totally closed off, and you're like, well, here's part of your problem, right?
Yeah.
So this becomes part of the process.
Yeah.
So has it ever happened where you fully cleanse all this stuff and then you get to the end and you're like, well, there we go. Like, that's what you needed. Or is it usually deeper issues than that?
Usually the people that come to me have something deeper.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Because they have tried. And like in Sedona, this is...
Yeah, the chakra cleansing is, yeah.
So people have tried the basic stuff and
Okay.
they haven't got it to work. And so they've said, okay, now I need someone to actually lead me through a process where I can...
Well, that'll be fun when you do it with me because I've never done any of this. So you're going to be like, oh my God. Like, this is going to take a 3-day cleanse.
The color red, Russ. It's okay.
I don't have a rope or a rock. I've never done any of this.
Now you do. We just gave you ropes and rocks. Ropes and rocks, bro.
I definitely want to try it. Okay, so you get through the cleansing, and then what? Like do you end up actually speaking to their ancestors, or is it just in the books?
Okay, so once you've got all your systems situated, then I can take you on a fun little visionary journey in through your golden door, and we create your own inner healing chamber where you have your own little library in there and your own golden bed and any kind of thing that you could imagine.
Yeah.
And you would ask your ancestors to put any pictures or artifacts or anything in this chamber that's important for you to know. If you are a flat earther, you're going to have a flat earth in there.
It's not a globe. It's
a picture.
It's a plate on a
Yes, a
it's
disc
rolled-
on a spinny plate.
But if you were circumnavigating the globe, you're going to have a globe in there and a ship and an
Okay.
astrolabe, or maybe
Yeah.
you're going to have some there's going to be some kind of things that are in there that are relevant to you that you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I've always loved that thing. I didn't know what it was, but I'm going to find out now.
That's cool.
And so we set up the healing chamber. And this is a visual process. You know, you're walking down a path, you're smelling things. This is part of the hypnosis. You're smelling the flowers, you're smelling trees. If you're a beach person, you're smelling the beach. You're integrating all the senses into it. And you're feeling the stone path on your feet. And you might be hearing birds chirping in the forest, or wind rustling leaves. I mean, you're really doing as immersive of a process as you can. And you want to I already told you guys I'm a visual and audio, and I think it's called kinetic, something like that.
Kinetic, yeah, I think
So I'm all three, but I have to find out, and you as a person going to see someone has to let someone know if you know, because someone who's an audio type of person wants to hear, someone who's visual needs to have a visual words to see things, and someone who feels things needs to, have the language that allows them to really feel
Might have all the sensations.
the earth on their feet or the breeze on their skin or, whatever's their way. So you're going to really immerse yourself into this place that is your sacred sanatorium. Is that the right word? I don't know. You're my dictionary, Russ. But, it's your sacred place in your own inner third eye where you go to rejuvenate, rest, heal stuff. And so I'm going to...
Oh, you mean like a sanctum? Is that what you...
Sanctum.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I forgot my dictionary, but...
I'm right here.
Thank you. Yeah, so you have your own. So, right, we're describing walking in this path. You've gone through the golden door. You've kind of had to put your hand on it and get some kind of hearing anything or feeling anything, getting some kind of input that this is your door. But this doesn't open into your chamber. This opens to a path, a stone path that's your own mosaic that you walk on, adjacent to a wood or something like that, with a creek, a babbling creek. And it turns into a dirt path. And then you end up in the forest and you cross a bridge over some water. It's all very symbolic, but you're seeing it and you're building it from your own, whatever you think of your ideal, your ideal kind of bridge, your ideal trees. This is your place. And you follow it over the bridge, and eventually you get to another golden door. And once you go inside this, then you're in your sanctum, because now you've walked through the garden of the mind, and you're back in the back garden, technically.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, so you take them through like a kind of a mental sort of ritual path to get all the way back there into this place that you're making for the healing to take place. Okay, that's really cool. Yeah.
And then because then you can go in at any time you want. I go in mine before I go to bed, and I do all my, cleansing, cleaning. I call in my ancestors. I'm like, I really need help with this. Please give it to me in my dream state. Show me what I need to know. I use it a lot, but this is the place where we go to be safe to do this type of deep work. So then you would call in the person's guides and ancestors, or, it's going to be specific to each person, and they're going to feel it. They are going to feel like this is their safe place. And all...
You mean the person you're working with will feel this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's made for them. It's their colors. It's their materials. They've built it, Like mine is very specific to me as far as like what I envision. It's round. I have a giant library in it. I also have a giant greenhouse. And when I visualize it, my body relaxes. And this is what you have to do to get into hypnosis or any healing work, which is why sleeping is really important. The body has to be able to relax.
You're screwed.
Yeah. Well, I already know mine is like a little tiny shed in the woods.
It's all beat up.
Yeah, you open it, it's full of tools, there's cobwebs, but there's a little button in the back. Boop. Zzz, the elevator goes down, and there's a massive computerized bunker down there. All the lights come on.
That's awesome. So listen, that's how people do. Well, you guys have heard of regression hypnosis, where you do past life regression or whatever. But you go into the chamber, and then you have to take the stairway down in spirals until you hit the right level to get out, and then you're in the other time.
Yeah.
That's connected to this issue that you're experiencing.
So I've done this thing where. I don't know where I got this initially, but I would like kind of build these like palaces like in my mind too.
Yeah, the mind palace,
And
the
just
memory
like go
palace.
in, but yeah, I ended up reading about that way later. But I
later.
did this like as a young
Cool.
person where I would like, because I had dreams like this where I'm like, we've all had these dreams, like you're in this place, you keep, and it's
Like a
just like this
maze.
massive
Yeah.
building that has all these interesting secrets and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yep.
And I would do this like as a just sort of like, I don't know. I remember specifically one time doing it, just like riding in the back of the car, like a long time ago. I was in your car. We were going somewhere, and I'm just laying back there. It's dark, and I don't remember where we were, but I just start going into this cave, and I start just building this whole thing, going through it, walking through it, and looking through it, and just for like fun. But it's always been really interesting, like something interesting always happens. It's always like, wow, that's weird. But I learned later about the mind palace for like memory. I was listening to an audiobook about memory and like how to
Organize your memory.
organize your memories.
Detail. Yeah, the memory palace where
Cool.
you have rooms for specific memories and you
Yes.
continuously access them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just interesting to listen to you describe all this, and I'm like, yeah, I used to do
I
this a
have
lot.
that. Yeah.
Used to-
I just need to update my past.
Like I
Well,
can
and-
see still in my mind's eye like certain parts of like these places.
The description you just gave of that part of the process, going down the path to reach this specific place, was part of the hypnosis stuff that we studied as well. This guy wasn't doing. He was focused on healing yourself,
Yeah.
right? And he was this book was specifically about self hypnosis, doing this yourself,
Yes.
right? And that was like a really important part. Once you got to the correct mind state, then you would either take yourself, or if you're hypnotizing somebody else, and I have done this to other people as well. I did it to Kyle and some other people, but you take them on this visual, like a sensual journey, like you use visuals, you use descriptors, you kind of let them build it, you give them the idea, and then like let them.
Yes.
And it can be a journey where they're being carried, like they're flowing along in some, but some people don't like water, so you have to be careful,
Yes.
right? So another way is to have them walk or float, whatever and it's like down a path, you give them water somewhere, you give them the earth, the nature, the trees, the sky, the wind, some kind of life. You want them to see, like hear birds,
Yes.
like you were saying, maybe there's butterflies, flowers,
Yeah.
so they get smells, right? It could be the beach. But then the goal is like you're taking them down this path, and as they travel this path, they know there's a goal at the end of the path, but part of it is also because it's dropping you deeper and deeper into this trance.
Yes.
Yeah. And you reinforce that, like you see this building in the distance, or these beautiful golden shining doors in the distance, and as you're approaching the doors, you're getting deeper into the trance, right?
Yes.
So they know, and then like you kind of build it up. You get to the door, and when you open the door, boom, it's kind of like okay, now you're in. Here's your center. Mm-hmm. This is your sacred sanctum,
Yes.
This is the safe place. Everything you need is in here. And then you can give them tools for healing if necessary.
Yes.
But I like what you're saying, like have the ancestors supply certain things, put photographs, paintings, objects, items, things that are important to them that you don't necessarily know the details of.
Yeah. I
Right.
don't need to, because
Yeah.
it's for them. And then
That's
I would
really
tell
cool.
them to tell me about something that the thing that got the most attention from them when they walked in the room. What was it? And that's going to give me a clue. And we're going through this process together, because I'm really facilitating, right? They're actually doing it. So I'm asking questions to get them to do more stuff.
Yeah.
And the more that they do it, eventually they're going to have a realization that's going to integrate something in them that they didn't know before or they couldn't grasp before. And it's not coming from me telling you
Yeah,
that
that
this is
makes
the
sense.
issue. This is you figuring it out on your own. And
Yeah.
then it, boop, boop,
Yeah.
update, do you know?
Yeah.
So I enjoy that the most because
When they have that eureka moment, sort of like they. Yeah.
because they got it and they just did all their own updating. And all I did was kind of give a map for them to follow
Yeah.
and help them get situated so they could actually get there, right?
Yeah.
Made sure the car was running enough so they could make the journey.
Right.
And I feel like those are the most powerful transformations because
It comes from within rather than, right?
yeah, when you're spitting data at someone and you're connected to this giant library and they're asking you questions and you're responding, even if your response is coded from some part of them that they recognize, there is only a certain amount of data that they can take in before their eyes gloss over.
Yeah.
And they can't integrate it physically, right?
Yeah.
So part of the intention process that I have with them when we set this up, we visualize the thing happening, right? We go there and we give thanks. And then when I have them put it right in their heart chakra and send it to all their cells and bring it from the ether to the physical. Get it into all your cells. Put it into your nucleus and your DNA and your RNA and see it all happening, updating this, double helix chain of like, oh, update, okay.
Yeah.
Then I have them put it into all the molecules and all the atoms and all the subatomic particles and, put it into the ether and then give thanks for it because the integration from the non-physical to the physical really has to happen from what I understand, the programming of the body to be updated, right? So then we get to this point. So we've set the intention in the beginning. Now here we are at the end. We have the realization. We're going to go back in and see all that stuff updated again because you're anchoring. It's called anchoring. When you go in and out of hypnosis, when you're learning how to do it, it's called anchoring it. And from my understanding, you're just building a neural network, right?
Yeah.
So you're going in and out and in and out, and you're getting your body used to it. You've got a new a process in your brain that's like, oh, I know that road.
Yeah, that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Like when we were doing this hypnosis stuff, it was like we got to the point where I could just like
You could just think about it and bam.
And you're in.
instantaneously
Yeah.
be
Right?
Yeah.
So this is what I'm doing then at the end. We've got the person, they've got the realization. There's some huge aha moment that's come. It's usually very emotional. There could be a release, some crying, some cleansing. And, of course, I'm in the records still, so we're always going to ask, like, okay, well, what do we need to do to integrate this fully, But we're going to go in and see it updating first. That it's all integrated and that everything's working and that whatever resolution has come into this person's awareness is now taking place. And sometimes it happens in the physical world. Sometimes it's just a spiritual exchange of, oh, wow, I didn't realize this person was having this problem and I can actually forgive them now for this thing that they did to me,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oop.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can
Yeah.
bump that mic.
Okay,
Don't worry
good.
about it.
I'm like, I hope I'm not making a
No.
And I
dunk.
keep wanting to change this because I feel like you're having to reach over the boom there, but we'll fix it in the break.
Okay.
And it's actually
We could take a break. You're doing great.
this is
It's
awesome.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Right before we go to break, how long, like just how many hours does this take, like, let's just say on average for somebody to get to the point where they can really be immersed down in that state, be able to go to that place, be able to work on problems? Like how many hours to get them cleaned up and blah, 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 blah.
I like to schedule a 2.5 hour time session to do a full session.
And okay, so 2.5 hours for a session, but like, I know this
Fastest
probably
2 hours of
varies.
healing.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
This probably varies from person to person, but till they're really comfortable
Oh.
on their own to be able to just go to this place on their own and keep working on themselves where they're feeling it.
I think that's an individual question because some people I've gotten, it's like they came to Earth in this incarnation knowing how to do it. And some people are so new that they will need to fall asleep because they have zero neural network built. Okay, so it just depends. A person who's a really good meditator will actually have a better base for this type of work where they can go in and out and in and out.
So, like, if somebody asked me, how long would it take to learn to play guitar? Like, I'll tell them something like, play every day if you played every day for 1 hour, in 2 years, you'd be a badass. Is there something like that? Like, if you did 1 hour of this sort of meditative work every single day, could you do it in a month? Could you become really...
I was going to say, my time frame for behavioral change and updating is that, people say it a lot, the 21 days to create a new pattern. That's
Okay.
a legitimate
21 days.
21 days.
cycle of time to input a whole new
So from
behavior.
from noob to veteran meditator in 21 days,
I think if you did an hour a day.
an hour a day.
Yes. Yeah, you get really good at it. And a lot of it is if you really want it, you're going to get good at it really quickly. I
right.
picked up on this stuff super quickly, and you did
I mean,
too,
I'd say
probably.
that seems right, because when we were doing the hypnosis stuff, after a month of doing it like
Yeah.
every night, I mean, it was almost instantaneous. So a month seems right to me. 21 days.
Cool.
Challenge accepted.
Fastest 2 hours in podcasting, folks. I thought this was segment 3. It is the final segment. And already know that we got to have you back on.
Yeah.
Because, this is really cool. And I'm sure there's so many avenues and details we can get into. Maybe we could do a Patreon. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of late, but we'll
Cool.
see. Yeah?
Yeah.
I think, maybe we'll, check with
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll do a Patreon then.
So yeah, so maybe in the Patreon we can do some of the more philosophical stuff. But let's go back a little bit to the astrology. So do you, like, when somebody comes to you, do you like go through do you set up a chart? Do you like, what happens with that?
Yeah, so I missed that step in the beginning because I didn't always do it. Okay, I was taking you back to the beginning.
Yeah.
But now that I've trained and I've seen how cohesive the chart is with what I'm doing, for the past 4 or 5 years, I will ask for someone's birth information and pull a chart first. Because when we're looking at astrology, it's a picture of the sky at the time that you exited the womb of your mother. Okay, so we call it like a blueprint. It has imprinted your beingness in some way. And there's a lot of psychological, behavioral traits that are in there. But what's interesting about it is that it's made before you are born. And so the things that are coming up technically came from before you were born. Yes?
Yeah. What do you mean it's made before you were born? You mean like the arrangement of the sky at the time of your actual arrival into the physical world outside of your mother is preceded by the sky before that, and so the situation is being set up? Is that what you mean?
Well, let's say, because some people want to know, is it predictive, this astrology? And I don't necessarily see it as predictive outside of the fact that we all go through cycles of time that are recorded in the moving of the planets, and there's certain ages where certain things happen.
All right, well,
to everyone.
Let me stop you there, because this brings up. I had this question earlier. I didn't get to ask it because you said I asked you something. And you were like, well, with that we may get into like the idea that all of time is the same, or like
happening at once.
But
Yeah.
then you talk about cycles, and things need to have timing. So how can those two things coexist?
Well, that's why it's hard to wrap your brain around it, right? Because in the physical world, we could not operate if everything was happening at once.
Yeah.
Right. So we come into a body and we're here experiencing Earth, and we are in a local time custom, is maybe the best word I think I could describe,
Yeah.
use to describe it. And so we're in the mechanism of the processions and the equinoxes and all of these things that people use throughout all time to manage their lives. And within that, we have the cycles, like the Saturn cycle is probably one of the most prominent cycles that everyone experiences universally in their own way, depending upon where Saturn is in their charts when they were born, and then what sign it is in and what house it is in, because the chart is divided into 12 houses or segments, just like the sky and the zodiac is divided into 12. And so, you know, Saturn takes about 29 years to go around the zodiac. So about every 7 years, you would have something called an aspect. You know, so you've got a pie, and let's say your Saturn's over here, and in 7 years, it's going to be here, and it's going to make a 90-degree angle. And another 7 years, it's going to be here. It's going to make what we call an opposition, 180-degree angle. Over here, we got another 7 years. We're going to have another square, a 90-degree angle. And then at age 29 or 30, it's called a Saturn return, where the Saturn in the sky is in the same degree and sign as Saturn was when you were born. And that's a huge growth cycle for people. You know, at 29 is where I decided to have my first child. And my husband's 29. We had our second child and started our business. You know, it's a time in people's lives where you're saying goodbye to adolescence in some ways and taking on more responsibility, but then also gaining more reward, because this is part of Saturn's role in the psyche.
I was going to say, I think my Saturn probably took like 35 years.
Were you a late Saturn bloomer?
I think so.
Well,
Saturn
and
was a
some
little
of
slow
us
for Kyle.
resist, yes. And there's lessons there, right? But when we look at the astrological blueprint from the soul perspective, right? So we're working in the Akashic Records. We're dealing with the record of the soul. We're going to deal with this idea of karma. What is karma, right? People use it a lot. They don't really know what it is. But let's just say it's a lesson that needs to be
It's when
learned.
bad stuff happens to you and you deserved it.
Jerk.
That's
No.
that's how people use it. Yeah.
That's right. Karma's gonna get you.
Yeah, exactly.
But really, in a spiritual aspect, our universe doesn't function like that. Our multiverse, whatever terminology I use, multiverse. But you know, we're really here to learn things. And evolutionary astrology is the way of looking at the chart that's saying, hey, I came in as a soul. I have things I wanted to learn. These are kind of my deficits. These are my gifts. I had this situation that caused this big problem that I could not overcome in a previous life or a simultaneous life. I mean, it gets dicey when we start trying to pick words out that describe it properly. But most people's understanding of incarnation and reincarnation is that you start here in the past and you go forward. So that's the simplest way to describe it,
Sure,
whether
yeah.
or not it's accurate. Okay.
Yeah, and I my question on the time stuff was just to get you to clarify your thoughts, because I mean, we've discussed this possibility before. I mean, Laird Scranton was on. We talked about this with him about that there is another realm and they don't have time, but they interact with ours that does, right? And so this is how you can have both things, because
Right.
possibly our souls, spirits, whatever you want to call them, are really from there. And maybe if you look at some of the ideas with near-death experiences and how people talk about the higher self, that maybe most of our greater self is still there.
Yes.
And it's just got this connection to
This cord.
the part of it that's animated this body, right? And so it can be both things, right? So to the beings in that realm, all of time in this material realm is one thing. It's in one place.
And it's all happening
Right.
together.
All at once to them. It's simultaneous. Or even that concept doesn't even matter because they don't have a past or future.
Right. It's just there.
Yeah.
It exists.
Yeah. So from our perspective here, your past lives are in the past, your future lives are in the future.
Yeah,
but to
we
your
call-
higher self, it's all happening at once.
Which is why you can call on your future
that's
self
even-
to help you.
That's even still a time-bound statement.
Yeah, all happening
All
at
at once.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still like, this is the problem.
We don't have the right words
We don't even
to
have a
describe
con-
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
We need more access to our cranial capacity so we can understand these concepts.
Well, I think that's what we're saying. It's possible to sort of have an abstract idea of what this means, but you don't have the words to describe it
No.
because they don't exist. All of
And
our
we
words
can't-
are tensed,
Yes.
right?
We'll just say quantum. It's like everybody uses that.
Yeah, we
to-
can use quantum and resonance and vibrations and throw in some crystals somehow, and all of it'll make sense, right?
I find this idea very compelling. Like that there's a consciousness, like our consciousness may exist in another realm that intentionally attaches itself in some way to the physical realm through life to experience the physical or to learn something or I don't know what
Right.
reason.
Because if you had all
Maybe
that,
it's a prison.
Life
it's karma.
finds a way.
But yeah, it's I like that idea actually. That we're here learning something that we need to learn, and like that it's even by choice to keep coming back
Yeah.
to continue the learning process. Like for example, just to think about like our nature. Like I feel like if I had the option to dive into this dream and live a life inside a dream world, like let's say when I'm going to sleep, and I had a choice to go live a life in this dream world, but that I knew that it was a real world, and when I lived it, even if it was a nightmare sometimes or it was
Yes.
like an amazing paradise dream, I always woke up with some understanding that was gained about that world, about what was going on there. I learned something for myself, and then I go about my day. I'm like, man, every night you go back and it's like, I'm going back.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again because I want to learn more. Sometimes maybe it's scary and maybe you're like, oh, I'll stay away from that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it happens when people die in trauma and they die in fear, they might take a little time before they decide to jump back in.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you can't learn the things that we're learning from that other side because you don't have the experiences or the relationships or even, for that matter, the emotionality that we have here.
Yeah.
It's a sensual world with all of our senses intact, and it's intense. It can be intense in a great way. It can be intense in a terrible way. And from what I understand, that is the uniqueness of being in a physical body on Earth, that's something that's unique to this place, and that those emotions are our teachers. They're valid.
And in the Christian tradition, it's so unique that even God had to send himself here to understand like the plight of man, to really experience it from our position.
Yes.
And I think that like, to me, when I look at that part of the story, I'm just like, wow, like it's almost like they're telling us like, this is what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
the divine is coming down, becoming man. You're made in his image. Like this is what's happening.
Yeah. Well, and that you couldn't really understand it from the other side.
Yeah.
Right? Because everything
Yeah.
looks easy
Yeah.
from
then,
up
like-
there. You're like, why? Why don't you just turn the tiger into a kitten? Duh, come on.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
At the
yeah.
end of that story, Jesus is like, hey man, they don't know what they're doing. Like
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
Right.
So he came down here. And
They
spent
know
all-
not what they do.
Right.
That's
Right.
the point.
That was his judgment was like, bro, they're dumb. Like, I spent this whole time down here and I finally figured out that they're just dumb. Sorry. They're not malicious. It's not on purpose. They just don't know. Yeah, you're right.
So when you get to something like that and you don't know, and you're a person that crucified another person
Yeah.
who was trying to help people,
Yeah.
then when you incarnate in the next session, you're not going to qualify for a really easy, happy life. You're going to have to learn that lesson. If you don't learn it when you cross over and see like, oh, that was dumb.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to come back in and see it from a different perspective and get it so that the soul can evolve and say, oh,
And this is karma. Is that what you're going with? Yeah.
I never want to do that again.
Yeah.
Because that was dumb. And I wouldn't want to inflict that on to another person.
Yeah.
You know, and not every soul can learn it by just seeing it. You know, we've had this idea in all of time that when you die, or people that have near-death experiences, their whole life flashes in front of them,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, from my understanding, yeah, you have to go and look at everything. And you have to see what you did great, but also where you really need improvement.
So it kind of like if you do what you're saying here, like you're cleaning your chakras, you're going into your library, you're like checking yourself out all the time, then that
It's like a little
your life
mini
flash
judgment. Yeah.
like you're organizing your whole life flashing before your eyes situation, because like it seems like if you were
Well, that
well
stuff's
practiced
gonna
at that
come
and then
up.
you died, like navigating the duat would be
Yeah.
like pretty simple. You're just like yeah.
Yeah.
And we
I
call
do
that
as
Familiar
dying
with
well,
this.
right? Then you've died well.
Yeah.
Then you're not getting lost in all the different things
Yeah.
that can happen when you cross over in confusion. And not that you haven't made any mistakes, but you've looked at them and said, oh, yeah, that
Yeah.
was stupid.
Yeah.
I think that I know better than to do that again. And then you don't have to go through that process again. That's not how you get karma. Then you've taken responsibility. You've made a belief, and you're like, okay, I understand that when the teacher comes for the people, we're going to, if not support him, at least not kill him.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to let him live his life, live and let live. But people who didn't see that, then you come back in and, you know, this is the lesson that they're going to learn in another way. And so a lot of astrology gets labeled as pagan because I think it does naturally link into the idea that we live more than once. You know, we have, and this is against the Christian teachings of current times. I don't think it always was, and that's my personal opinion. But when I read the verbiage that's in the Bible, I think it sounds like they're talking about eternal life, that your soul lives eternally.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of scripture in the book that talks about people
Well, there's
coming
rebirth.
back in.
I mean, you're being reborn. You're born again, and we're going to do this ritual to show you that you're being born again. Like to me, I see it. I also see that represented. It's just not. They're not talking about here. Let's show you how you just go through these multiple cycles. They're just talking about one. Like here's how you navigate the cycle you're in right now.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's the way I look at it. But the ritual
they're-
of
yeah.
baptism.
Right. They're showing there's like a glimpse into the greater
Yeah,
cycle.
it's like a little.
Yeah.
It's a little Easter
Yeah.
egg.
You die and are born again. Yeah, that's right. It's an Easter egg. Yep.
I don't know. That's I don't know. I've thought about all this kind of stuff as it concerns Christianity, and to me, it makes sense. I mean, it looks like it's got all of this stuff sort of embedded in it in some way.
Yeah, I think there was a lot more that they told people and people knew back before, you know, all of the powers that be kind of hijacked the religion. The cool thing about it is that the goodness of it still continues to spread. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like they could get rid of the whole message because it was powerful. And this is important when we're talking about our faith and like, okay, I see now from learning all these new ideas that maybe what I learned wasn't complete.
Have you read Bramley yet? The Gods of Eden. I got to give you that book if you haven't.
Yes.
You
I
have?
have. No, I haven't. I was saying,
okay.
yes, give me the book.
Because
from the library.
this is the same. He mentions the same thing. Like he calls these maverick religions. Like in other words,
I remember us talking
yeah,
about this.
that there's a control mechanism for the whole planet, and it's been around for forever. So we're long heads, Anunnaki, whatever you want to call them. He called them aliens, UFOs, right? But the idea was that every once in a while, a maverick
like a
religion
renegade.
would show up, and it's always some upstart, some dude who starts talking to people. He makes a lot of sense, and he's like injecting this proper what Bramley considered to be the like a proper spiritual science back into the populace that had been taken, corrupted, destroyed, obfuscated for thousands of years, and then somebody shows up and starts teaching the right way again, and then it spreads like crazy, right? And then those movements are always like engulfed by the control mechanism and corrupted again because they don't want this information to be out there, because we are in a reincarnation cycle, and something is kind of wanting to keep control over this cycle on Earth.
Yeah. I mean, there's this idea that people, based on their belief systems, if you don't die well and you go into the light, that you could be recycled into an Anunnaki belief system, which maybe has like a caste system or something like that, right? Where you don't have a lot of freedom to, believe, think, act, do what is important to you on your soul purpose. And then you have to figure out how to get out of it, right? It's almost like
purgatory.
Yeah.
It's like a video game. You know, you got to like solve the puzzle, and you got to do the things, and then you level up, and then you get put into a higher bracket of the choices that you have next time you come in, right? So, but you have to earn that. This is not people, we're given life. People in the United States believe that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by innate of being alive, right? That's a spiritual
given by God.
Yeah.
Was the original idea.
Yeah. And, that's a deep-seated spiritual belief that is true in a lot of ways, but you have to earn it. You have to earn it. It's not, if you're a person who constantly makes terrible choices and does terrible,
you can take those things away from
things,
yourself.
That's right.
Yeah, the idea, I think, is that like it's not supposed to be able to be taken from you by the state, but you can certainly keep yourself from having those things.
That's right, by your own poor choices.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was it on that.
Okay, so back to the stars. You described the Saturn cycle. Are there other important ones? What do you look at when you're looking at it? Do you do a full chart on a client, or do you complete?
Yeah.
You wave it in front of me like, bro.
The whole thing. I look at it, and I look at the chart, which is the natal chart, which is the picture of the sky when the person was born. And it's got a lot of data in it. I mean, a report on a chart with all the data in it, I would say would be hundreds and hundreds of pages. So there's a process that you go through it, looking at what they call the primal triad, which is the sun, the moon, and what's called the ascendant, which is, if you've got a circle and it's got 2 lines through it. So you've created
4 quadrants.
Four quadrants. Then you've got the eastern horizon where the sun would rise, if it was going around, and that is called the ascendant. And so I look at the cycles of time because there are other big ones. I am in the middle of what's called a Uranus opposition, which is everybody's midlife crisis. So you're welcome.
That's why she's doing a podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
But, again, depending on the sign in the house, Uranus is job is to make sure that we are living our authentic lives and that we are not succumbing to the pressures of society and culture, um, you know, in a way that's going to degrade our spiritual happiness and productivity and individuality. Okay.
So that's why like because the classic like stereotypical midlife crisis is the person buys a fast car,
Date
like
a 22-year-old.
dates so they've gotten to this point where they're like, my life went in the wrong direction. I want to go back and start over, and
I'm in the rat race.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in the rat race.
Right,
I've
so
committed myself to a job that I hate.
Yeah.
Maybe I've chosen a spouse that I no longer like.
Yeah.
Maybe because of that, I don't like the family that I've built.
Yeah.
Right.
You hearing all this, Matt?
I'm out.
You hearing this, bro?
But that's the typical, people
Yes, yeah.
go and get an education and they don't realize what that field is like. And then you don't really figure out until you're in your 40s how terrible, being an engineer is if you're a super type of creative person. You thought you were going to be building all these beautiful bridges over water and you're stuck like doing pipes
Concrete
for a
pads
city.
or pipes, yeah.
And you're like, oh, this sucks. That's not what I paid for. So yeah,
But it's crazy that that to me, I'm just like, okay, so this planet is now on the other side of the sky, and suddenly you're like, no, I'm
and
in the
saying,
wrong place.
hey,
Yeah.
like what are you doing about you? You've been through your first Saturn cycle, you've been through a couple others. It's supposed to be a progression of education, whereas you keep leveling up, you keep getting more rewards, right? But sometimes people don't like to take the steps or the responsibility to get up there. And so then these planets come and say, hey, you're slacking. Why are you continuing to work in this career that you hate when you know you have a talent for A, B, and C?
Yeah.
Like, get out there and do it, or else you're going to feel miserable because Uranus is over here saying, like, I'm going to suddenly shock you into some kind of change if you can't do it yourself. And so...
So what does Jupiter do then?
Jupiter is the teacher, the expander. Jupiter likes you to stop underestimating yourself and to be jolly Jupiter like Santa Claus. No. But to go places and to learn new things and to immerse in new cultures and to learn a new language. But, it's rules Sagittarius, which is all about experiencing new things to expand your awareness and your consciousness and your circle. Now, if you're not doing those things, though, Jupiter can expand the things that are not going well and say, hey, you're not going to go have fun and go on a trip. Well, I'm going to light your barn on fire. No.
Speaking
All
from
done.
experience.
All done. Yeah. So, we have these times in our lives, and some of them, like you say, you saw our Saturn cycles are just based on years passing by and the movement of the planet around the zodiac. And those are for the bigger planets. But other ones are based on, like, okay, let's say Saturn goes over where your sun is. That's not going to be the same time of life for everybody because your sun can be in any place around the zodiac and Saturn can be in any other place around it, right? So it's not going to be regular. But when Saturn went over my sun is when I decided to really expand my skills a whole bunch. I felt really super smart during that time. And part of me is like, are you going to come back? It was it was a great time for me of really doing the work and then getting the reward of wanting to be really proficient in a higher capacity than I was already. It's where I got all my new tools and then I changed the whole way I worked with people. And myself and my family, right?
Yeah.
So I got all these big rewards from it. And I really relaxed into what I was doing as far as really trusting the process and my faith and like, okay, I'm a conduit for like what's happening here, but it's not solely relying on me and my abilities. We are tuning in to the divine forces and we all have assistance. And so, you know, Heather doesn't have to know all the answers to do a good job. And that was part of my reward for doing that work was like taking this pressure off myself. And so everyone's is going to be unique depending upon the placement of their charts. But I think it's one of the most fascinating things to study because initially when I first learned about the Akashic Records, my teacher was giving me another reading about my son because he had special needs, right? So I was really trying to figure out what was my role as a parent, what does God want for us to do for him, and of the things that we want to do, how do we do them the best way, you know?
Yeah.
So I was really working in those records, and a lot of the things that they told me about him when I first saw his birth chart, his natal birth chart, I was like, oh, it's all right there. I
Yeah.
could have known. Yeah. So this is my tie-in for astrology and Akashic Records,
Yeah.
is that a lot of the data they're pulling is related to this birth chart that we have that's like an imprint on our psyche, on our cells. I don't really claim to know how that all works because if we did, we would all be more like demigods or something. But
Well, I have some questions about it.
Yeah.
So this is like a modern astrology, right? I mean, I know that it's pulling from more ancient sources, but is it being advanced by the advancement of cosmology and astronomy and science, like as we learn about planets? Because I mean,
I was gonna ask
you're talking
that
about
too.
Uranus.
Yeah.
It wasn't known about, you know,
Yes.
and for a lot of the time
yeah.
in the past.
So what they say about those planets is once we can see them, whether it's with a telescope or with the naked eye, then we as a human species have added another layer to our psyche. And so there's some kind of play between the consciousness or the movement of the planets and the consciousness of the people.
So I mean,
I was gonna say too, like, did maybe these cycles existed and there just was no explanation?
yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's
And
a
then
more
we find
vague.
the planet, we're like, oh, yeah, okay, now we can see the cycle and the cause of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm asking too.
Yeah.
And then like now we have like we there's ideas that there are these black holes in the center of the galaxy, and there's like this galactic
Yes.
alignment with the planets and for Earth and the sun, and then beyond that, there's there's other crazy things out there. Like I mean, we get hit by these waves from exploding
Flares.
black holes, and
Oh, yeah.
or like there's quasars out there. There's all this stuff, and it's like I know that you could get lost in the details. Like you said, you could have 300 pages or whatever it was.
Yeah, 'cause even with the comets, there's so many comets, and some of those comets are bigger than Pluto. I mean, so
Yeah.
there is, from a scientific or a logical standpoint, you would say, well, those bodies are impacting us somehow. We don't know how, though, yet,
Yeah.
because there is so much of it.
Yeah, I mean it's there's too much.
There's
out
too
there.
much. But I would say from the people that I, learned from, that certainly every single one of those things, the waves are impacting us somehow. They're touching us. We're part
they
of
are.
the same
I
material.
mean, if we can see them, their waves are impacting us.
Yeah. But we don't maybe know how yet. Or
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
you know.
You
So the-
don't.
We're
You
too
can't
dumb.
sift that out of all the data.
The
right?
other
No.
question I have has to do with procession, and just spare you the details. But if you went back 12,000 years ago, the sign that you might study now would be in the winter. Like if it was a summer sign and it's warm outside when the baby comes out of the womb, it's in the middle of summer and there's bloom and all this stuff, it would be in the winter 12,000 years ago. So it's just a simple shifting of the position of the axis. Like if the axis is pointed at you, the sun 12,000 years ago is like this.
Yeah.
So you're actually over here in the winter time or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Would
'cause
that in the northern hemisphere? So like
Well, this is the other thing, because astrology, the language is really based out of the northern hemisphere, and it would be different. And so I haven't researched the old stuff that they have from, Egypt.
It just doesn't sound like the local weather really has anything to do with it. You're just talking about the alignments of the bodies out there, their cycles. Because to me, I think like if you were born in the summer versus being born in the winter, these are like really like high energy affecting you at that time, right? This is
Yes.
because like the next thing out, the moon, is like much more vague than summer or winter.
That's the sun, right? The alignment of the planet with the sun itself. But a lot of the astrology, I mean, the sun is involved, but a lot of the astrology stuff is like the planets, the stars. So it's like none of those affect the, well, maybe they do. I don't know if they affect the weather. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
No,
Well,
it's
that's what
a
I'm
huge
yeah.
mystery.
That's what I'm saying. 12,000 years ago, the sun's still in the same
Yeah.
sign in the sky, but you're dealing with a
different
completely
season.
opposite season.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder how that, like, that has to be updated. Like, as we move through the ages.
Well, I wonder
These-
about that too, because this is where this whole Vedic astrology comes from. The idea, or the sidereal, I don't know how you say it. But
Sidereal.
Sidereal. Okay, that is how you say it, just like that. Okay. Is that, the astrology that we're working now is based on where the planets were, 2,000 years ago, and they've updated it, and it shifts all of the placements of your planets, like 22 or 23 degrees. And there's a lot of people that like that methodology, and it feels accurate for them. When I looked at my chart like that, I was like, who is this person? This is not me. And when I looked at my chart, before I really even believed in it, because I was just learning what it was, because I was intrigued by what was coming out of my records, and that I had kind of this, I followed an intuition of something that was going to be exciting. So I'm like, okay, well, what is it? And when I looked at my chart, I was like, oh, I get it. Like, I literally was like, I'm not bipolar. I just have all these things conflicting with each other,
So this is a more ancient version of the chart?
Mine is going, it's the traditional way, not the
Okay.
new way. So I think that, like everything in the Akashic Records, it's so individual based on what your ancestry is and your lineage of which type. Like when I go to I have a program for astrology, and when you go to look at the different zodiacs, like literally there's 100 of them, all different. I don't even know what they do, because I only do the stuff I know how to do, right? I don't have the time yet to study what's the difference between all these different zodiacal arrangements. But I'm a very intuitive person, right? And I was looking for some answers, and I found this thing that really made sense to me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go with it and learn about it and see what it is. So I think everybody has to find the thing that they look at that's like, oh, that makes sense to me, or that shows me something about myself in a new way that allows me to integrate these different pieces of myself that I didn't really understand where they were coming from, right? Like my idea that I really want to travel a lot, and this idea that I really want to homestead. There's a lot of people that have these conflicting ideas that you can see on a chart. It's really a psychological kind of a tool, the old school way. The new school way, the sidereal, I've heard is more like philosophical or spiritual based. But like I said, when I looked at mine, it didn't ring true for me. It didn't resonate. I didn't get all my chakras lit up and my crystals, and I was like, garbage. Because I had someone
Total
tell
garbage.
me that. Yeah. So, I can't explain it any better than that, except for there's a part of yourself that would understand the data that's coming through this glyph. It's like a huge coded message from your soul, that's connected to the divine, that's saying, hey, dummy, here's a roadmap. I see you've got kind of these challenges, and then here's the answer to those challenges. If you develop these traits or abilities, you're going to be able to handle this situation that tripped you up last time much better. So, use it as like a map or a decoding glyph, right?
Okay.
But don't try and tell the future with it. Or
Yeah.
when's a good day to buy a stock? No.
If
None
you
of
want to
these
tell the
things.
future, use astronomy. Because you can be
Yeah.
like, that planet is going to be over there in about 30 days. That's about all the future you can tell.
And we're out of time.
Oh, that went fast.
Yeah,
That
fastest
was
2
great.
hours of podcasting. We're definitely gonna have to have you back, and
Yep.
maybe we can do a Patreon segment.
Okay.
We'll go talk to the fam and see if we can do that. But yeah, thanks for coming on. It was great. And you know what?
Absolutely enjoyed
Nothing,
it.
nothing's happening in space, people, except that it's informing your entire life. So don't worry about space weather news for this week. Yeah.
I think you need to incorporate proton density into your
Yeah.
chart.
You need to.
That's
yes,
right.
we need to know that.
What was the proton density when my son was born?
That's going to be your new field, Kyle.
All right.
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
thank you, Heather.
You are both most welcome. I appreciate you both, and it was a lot of fun.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great. And to all of you listening and supporting the show, thank you guys. We love you.
Always
Thank
have.
you.
Always will.
Good night, Atomic.
Get back to work.